Buenos días, buenas tardes, y buenas noches. Bonjour, bonsoir. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you may be. Jay, Slater case, of course it is. And kind of ran out of time today, so the Sunday roast is going to have to be a very small affair right now. It is indeed the Welsh lamb I had prepared earlier, but in a very small portion. Just don't have that much time. So a little tapas serving of Welsh lamb, if you like. And then tomorrow I will have to get into, I think, one of the biggest trolls out there that needs a real dressing down and a dose of the truth. So I will focus on Peter Pennington, I think, tomorrow. Peter Pennington has said a fair amount recently that needs to be combated with great vigor, robustly. That will happen tomorrow. Fingers crossed. So let's turn to a quick roasting of the Professor of Pisspot University of West Wales, L. Slug Tardo. Now, recently, El Slugtardo was crowing about the great success of Jay's Law petition and how the government were behind it and Home Secretary was behind it, ruling Labour Party all behind it. This was going to happen. Oh, done deal. Those 18,000 signatures really socked it to the masses of the United Kingdom, showing them with 18,000 signatures. Oh, I don't know if you saw my post where it looks like children children could well have been included in that list of signatures, would you believe it? But anyway, 18,000 signatures was really going to sock it to the nation. Now, I did pose the question. I said, well, who exactly is going to be backing this now? Because Sarah Smith seems to have jumped ship, right? Haven't seen her on the couch with Debbie. Haven't seen her name mentioned alongside Jay's Law. Haven't seen her crowing about the 18,000. And we did have that line from Debbie. I mentioned it on Jan's Views Live last night. That quote from Debbie, "It's not over yet." And I remarked, usually when you hear someone say it's not over yet, it's pretty darn close to being over. I think it is over. Jay's Law petition, I think we can say, is over. And I say all this because the news is just like now, a few minutes ago, we heard that Sarah Smith is one of the group of MPs calling for the Prime Minister to resign. Indeed. So when Luggy says this has government backing, which government is he talking about? Is he talking about Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister who it looks like is about to be kicked in the teeth by his own party as a civil war erupts in the Labour Party? Is he talking about that government? I mean, does Luggy really think that the Prime Minister and the Cabinet and the upper echelons of Her Majesty's government go to sleep at night worried about how to get Jay's Law passed? Really? Got news for you, El Slugtardo. That is the very last thing on their minds right now. But maybe, El Slugtardo, you want to go back to your original Labour MP, Sarah Smith, who really was backing this? Do you think, El Slugtardo, that Sarah Smith is now going to bed at night thinking, well, how do I get Jay's Law petition through? You know, here Sarah Smith is battling away to remove the Prime Minister, who you thought, El Slugtardo, was backing Jay's Law. But it turns out, yeah, Sarah Smith, she's really trying to figure out how she herself can get Jay's Law passed. Listen, the reality of politics is something like Jay's Law was worth a few seconds mumbling in Parliament as it was aired. This is something that concerns my constituents. That's over. That's gone. All that Debbie's waiting for is a revised answer from the government regarding its initial answer from the 10,000 signatures that happened a few months ago. That's it. Debbie may or may not get a revised answer. It changes nothing. So once again, let's throw out the question there because El Slugtardo, yep, the slugster, he has been trying to answer a few questions of late. Let him answer this one. When you say, Sluggy, that Jay's Law has the backing of the government, that's what you've said, has government backing, the government are behind this. Which government are you talking about? The 50 Labour MPs that want to overthrow the Prime Minister of the present government, or the government that is in power and kind of lukewarm in its backing for the present Prime Minister? Which government are you talking about? I don't know. And I don't think you know, Sluggy. All right, let's move on to another question I have for Sluggy. But first of all, let me paint the picture. Because recently in his weekend rant, El Slugtardo he said on two separate occasions that he does not watch me. And he actually put out that post that said, let us ignore him, or something like that. Now, I'm thinking the plea to ignore him was me. I think the idea was that El Slugtardo and all his supporters, all 12 of them, should ignore me. And Sluggy said, I don't watch any of his rubbish, bro. You can be assured. Yeah, again, pretty sure he's talking about my videos. I don't watch any of his rubbish, bro. You can be assured. And also he said, I simply do not watch you, Ian. Well, that's pretty direct. I simply do not watch you, Ian. All right, good to know. So, how does Sluggy, if he doesn't watch my videos, how does he know anything that I say? How can he comment on anything that I say if he doesn't watch the videos? Well, we might hear a rush of accident groups saying, well, even though he might not watch the videos, he may just read the transcript, right? Because if he read the transcript, he could at least, I mean, he wouldn't get the whole visual thing, he wouldn't get the intonation, he wouldn't get so much of communication that is not contained in simple words, he would be missing out on a lot. And I think when you have slow learners, when you have those that are very late developers and they're not very clear thinkers, when they are limited to just a transcript, they don't pick up on very much at all. And that might be, not that I like making excuses for Sluggy, but that might be the reason why he misunderstands so much. Because if he's just looking at the transcript, he is going to miss out on all the visuals. Aren't you? Aren't you, Sluggy? Yeah, you're going to miss out on all the visuals. Yeah. So, what do we do about this? Now, the weird thing is, even though Sluggy says he doesn't watch anything that I produce, he did come out with this line. He said, again, referring to me, please don't cry into your bowl of Weetabix. Please don't cry into your bowl of Weetabix. Now then, how would Sluggy know that I had any connection to Weetabix at all? Why would he come up with the word Weetabix in connection to me? Please don't cry into your bowl of Weetabix. Well, the only way I think Sluggy could come up with that whole don't cry into your bowl of Weetabix was if he'd seen something in my videos where Weetabix was featured. Maybe, I guess, in the background of a video. A box of Weetabix, maybe? Otherwise, why would that come to his mind? The problem here is he's already says, I simply do not watch you, Ian. Yeah, I don't watch any of his rubbish. So if Luggy doesn't watch any of my rubbish, he couldn't see anything of Weetabix in the background of any video. If he didn't see anything hinting at Weetabix in the background of my video, why would he say, please don't cry into your bowl of Weetabix? There seems to be a lot of lying going on here. Unless Luggy was told by one of his supporters that in at least one video of mine, there was a box of Weetabix. That's possible that Sluggy doesn't watch any videos of mine, and yet he knows that there's a connection between me and Weetabix, and that's why he mentioned it. But the only reason he knew that was because someone told him. Now, that raises the question, what kind of conversation is going on in the accident group whereby one follower of Luggy has to tell Luggy, oh, by the way, just for you to know, Duncan, I think, eats Weetabix because there was a box of it in the background of his video. Which kind of follower has the time to go into such details? I mean, it must be someone obsessed with every single feature of my life to think that's of importance and therefore to mention it to Luggy. That's one possibility. Some poor, obsessed individual that doesn't go along with this let's ignore him principle and has to find out every detail about me, then goes to Luggy and says, hey, I know you don't watch his videos, but I've seen something you should really know about. It's this box of Weetabix that I've seen in the background. It's the only explanation. Welcome to the world of the accident group. Or, another alternative, Luggy is lying. Again. But he does watch the videos. He's seen the box of Weetabix, and that's why he mentioned it. So that's what I'm going with. I'm going with this. I simply do not watch you, Ian, and I don't watch any of his rubbish is a lie. I think those are lies, and I think it's just part of a whole pattern of lying that we get from Sluggy. He catches himself out all the time. He doesn't need me to catch him out because he just writes the stuff. And I think when he goes back and reads it, after someone, not necessarily me, has pointed it out, he thinks, oh my God, I've walked into another trap, haven't I? Yes, you have, Sluggy. Yes, you have. And what else did Sluggy say of late? He says, you say, tell me this, Ian. Did you point out Jay's likely location beforehand? I don't know what beforehand. You mean before I started making any videos? Yeah, I did. Um, did I point out Jay's likely location beforehand? Certainly I did. Why would you think I didn't? I mean, if you want Sluggy, and we can do a shortcut here, like I say, you're welcome to join me in a live. You're welcome to talk to me, to email me, any means of communication you like. But yeah, I'm quite happy to explain beforehand that I did indicate where I thought Jay was likely to be. I did do that. Why you wouldn't know that, I don't know. But if you really want to know the details of that, you can just talk to me. Do you have the balls to do that? No, didn't think so. You also said, go on, Ian, tell us all what you offered while Jay was still missing. What did I offer when Jay was still missing, Luggy? Well, I tell you what. First of all, let's explain what you offered when Jay was still missing. What you offered, Luggy, was a total waste of time search operation in a place where Jay never went and there was no evidence of he ever went. So before we look at what I offered, what you offered was a total distraction to what really should have been focused on. Sad to say, Luggy, you pioneered a search for Jay when what was needed was someone, a good detective, to figure out what happened to Jay. Those are two separate things. You kept pushing to find the body or the person that was lost in an area where he never went. So it is what you did when Jay was missing that was totally destructive, negative, distracting, and really caused all the problems here. That's the truth. Now, most of the world did nothing but listen attentively, pray that a detective would come along to figure this out, and to be honest, we just witnessed what went on. Now, if you think witnessing what went on, praying and hoping for a detective to solve this, and fretting over the fact that people were looking for a boy in a place where there was no evidence he ever went is a bad thing, you go ahead and think it's bad, but that's what nearly everyone did. Remember, I'm just a commentator, Sluggy. I was just commenting much later on what I saw out there. And what I saw was an absolute disgrace. From the authorities, from people like you that claimed to be looking when you weren't. You were just fiddling around with LiDAR maps, trying to pretend you were after something that had left a trace when there was no trace there at all. You were the big time waster. You and Chris were the ones that distracted everyone into thinking maybe Jay actually went down there. When it's pretty clear to those that can think through this, he never did. So I don't know why you're so proud of what you did. What you did was the great distraction. Shame on you. Those of us that waited patiently to find out the full story, we did the right thing. And that is the roast of the day. I will say hasta luego, adios, hasta la vista. See you next time.